Welcome. This hazard communications course is designed to make sure that all Laidlaw Education Services employees know about the hazardous materials in our facilities, have access to information about them, and most importantly, learn how to work with them safely. This is part of our unwavering commitment to safety. Laidlaw's values state, we will never compromise on matters relating to safety, and that includes your safety when it comes to handling those dangerous materials.
What does hazard communications have to do with my job?
Why do I have to worry about how to handle chemicals?
I drive a school bus. I don't handle chemicals.
What do you think might happen if you didn't know how to handle hazardous materials? Stop now and brainstorm with the rest of the group to identify some of the hazardous materials you might come into contact with at Laidlaw. Well, I bet you never knew you were surrounded by so many hazards. Almost makes you afraid to touch anything, doesn't it? But don't worry. We'll show you how to identify hazardous materials, how to read labels, and how to use material safety data sheets. This information will help to protect yourself from exposure to hazardous materials, so you can remain healthy and safe. The first step in safeguarding yourself from hazardous materials is to be able to identify those materials in the first place. And you should also know whether an agent poses a physical risk or a health risk. Physical hazards, sometimes called safety hazards, are things that can immediately injure you or damage the things around you. They include combustible and flammable liquids, battery acid, compressed gases, and some cleaning agents. Health risks occur when chemicals affect or damage your health when they come into contact with your body. A health risk could show up as a simple skin rash, or you could develop cancer or anything in between. Health risks can be acute, meaning you could have an immediate reaction, or chronic, meaning the symptoms may slowly come on over time. Health hazards are usually harder to identify than physical hazards. For example, if something blows up, it's pretty hard to miss the explosion. But health hazards can hurt you without you knowing it, so you don't always notice them as they happen. Some of the most common types of hazards found at a typical Laidlaw facility include combustible and flammable liquids, corrosives, toxins and poisons, and irritants.
I'm a combustible, otherwise known as diesel fuel. As a school bus driver, I'm the most likely hazardous material you'll run into. I can catch on fire and cause all sorts of problems, including health risks with prolonged exposure.
Hi, I'm a toxin, also known as poison. If inhaled or swallowed, I can make you sick. If I'm powerful enough, or if you get a big enough exposure to me, I can even kill you. Here are some examples of toxins I recently found at a Laidlaw facility. Rat poison, wasp and hornet spray. Oh, and my favorite, Drain-O-Drain cleaner.
We irritants get a bum rap. I know we're bothersome and tedious and meddling, but okay, irritants are irritating. We can cause rashes, hives, and redness, or an itching or burning sensation. But that doesn't mean we don't need love. We can be found in a lot of cleaning products and in the dry powder that comes out of a fire extinguisher. But the good news is, once you get away from us, the irritation goes away too.
They're a nasty bunch, but once you learn to recognize them, you'll know how to protect yourself from them. Please stop now to discuss any other hazardous materials that may be present at your branch. Now that you've had a chance to discuss the different types of hazards in your branch, let's talk about how they should be labeled. So how do you tell if something is hazardous or not? The first thing you'll want to do is read the label. Always read the label. Labels help you identify things. For our purposes, Labels will help you identify the hazardous material and the dangers it presents. Manufacturers are required by law to put warning labels on all hazardous products, as well as on products that are made with hazardous chemicals. A warning label must include the following information: name and address of the manufacturer, identity of the hazardous material or materials used in a product. This can be either the chemical name, trade name, or common name. A warning word such as corrosive or toxic that describes the material's hazard. Some labels also include statement of hazards that could be encountered when handling or using the chemical, brief descriptions of what can be done to avoid the hazard. There are even labels that include instructions to follow in case of contact or exposure. However, most do not. You see, labels are designed to give you a quick overview of the basic information you need to protect yourself. Detailed information for every chemical and hazardous material can be found on that chemical's Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS. But first, let's take a quick look at three different labeling systems: DOT, NFPA, and HMIS. You're probably familiar with the first system. It's the Department of Transportation, or DOT labeling system for hazardous materials. You've probably seen trucks on the road with DOT placards. They're diamond-shaped and usually have a picture and one-word description of the danger presented by the material, such as flammable. They give you a little bit of information at a quick glance. The next two labeling systems are more detailed. The National Fire Prevention Association's NFPA uses colors and numbers to identify the type and severity of the hazardous material. The colors and numbers appear in a diamond, allowing you to quickly learn the degree of danger that a substance presents. Red indicates any likely fire hazard, with a 0 being low and a 4 being very high danger. Blue indicates the degree of health hazard the substance presents, with a 0 being low and a 4 being very high danger. Yellow indicates the substance's stability or instability, again with a 0 being very stable and a 4 being quite unstable. Finally, the white section gives various specifics and details. A similar system is known as the Hazardous Material Identification System, or HMIS. It works like this. The chemical name or identification number is found at the top. Then the blue bar indicates the level of health hazard. Below that, you'll find the degree of flammability in red. Again, the scale goes from 0, which is a minimal hazard, to 4, which means the chemical is very, very flammable. The yellow bar tells you how easily the material will react with other types of materials. The white bar tells you the personal protective equipment requirements for a particular material. All hazardous chemicals must be clearly labeled. At Laidlaw, all of our hazardous material arrive with labels on them. But remember, the label only gives you a little information, usually enough to know to stay clear from the material. Stop now and play the label game.
MSDS. What does that spell? Material Safety Data Sheet. Every hazardous material comes fully equipped with an MSDS, which has a wealth of information. Chemical manufacturers are required to provide detailed information about hazardous chemicals on material safety data sheets. An MSDS must be delivered along with any hazardous material. Material safety data sheets must be updated whenever a hazardous chemical changes or if any new information is discovered about it. Laidlaw must maintain copies of MSDSs for all hazardous substances used in the workplace. Always read over the MSDS for a particular material before using it. If you have any questions about hazardous material you will be using, ask your supervisor. So know where the MSDSs are stored in your facility, because when in doubt, or when you need information that can be found on the label, you'll find it on the MSDS. Now, a bottle of Pine Sol or a can of spray paint doesn't come with an MSDS. This type of packaging for consumers' use is considered too small, but other non-commercial chemicals and substances that we use at Laidlaw do come with an MSDS. Although every MSDS for every chemical comes with all the information you'll need, there's no standardized format for presenting it. In other words, every chemical manufacturer does their own thing. Some have 5 sections, some have 9, and they may identify the sections by different titles. For our purposes, we will learn to read an MSDS with 6 basic sections. They are identification, ingredients and characteristics, physical hazards, health hazards, spill and leak procedures, and special precautions. Let's take a few minutes and actually get familiar with an MSDS. Stop now and look over the samples.
So far, you've learned about hazards in your workplace, how to identify them by reading labels, or how to learn more about them by consulting the MSDS. But what's the point? Well, if you ask me, and although I can't hear you, I'll assume you did, the point is to protect yourself. Generally speaking, you can protect yourself by being careful around hazardous chemicals and by wearing personal protective equipment, otherwise known as PPE. For most substances a school bus driver encounters, such as diesel fuel or windshield washer fluid, PPE is simply not necessary. It would only be required if there were prolonged exposure. But most importantly, be careful. Remember, liquids can splash up into your face. Don't overfill your bus when fueling, and always take extra caution when dealing with any liquid. Never smoke around any chemicals in the shop or while fueling. If you get something on you, like diesel fuel or motor oil, wash it off immediately. If you have a spill or just see a spill, report it to your supervisor immediately. Fortunately, you don't have to handle a lot of chemicals or hazardous substances as a school bus driver. But when you do, take appropriate precautions. Let's review. There are a few hazardous materials and chemicals in our workplace. These can pose a physical risk, such as fire or explosion, or they can pose a health risk, such as skin rashes, or through excessive and prolonged exposure, even cancer. All hazardous materials must be labeled. The labels help you to identify the type of hazard that you may be dealing with. For every hazardous material, Laidlaw has on file a Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS. It has all the information you'll need for handling the substance safely. You can protect yourself by using extra caution when dealing with hazardous chemicals and by wearing personal protective equipment when it's required. At Laidlaw, safety comes first, so please follow these safety precautions. And if you have any questions about the subject, ask your supervisor. Thank you for your attention during this important course.